Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates video. I'm Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, lovely to see you. So on today's show, we are reviewing the latest Disney Plus Marvel TV show that has just premiered across the world, and that is Falcon and Winter Soldier. Really, really excited for this one, man. So I'm just going to pass over to Callum to explain the talking points of what we're going to be discussing during this episode. So off to you, bud.
So within this episode, we get to see sort of an insight into the intimate lives of Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes following Avengers Endgame, and we'll be talking spoilers in this episode. So the death of Captain America? Question mark.
I think, yeah, I was a bit
I don't
confused
know.
about that. We'll definitely get into it.
There's a few connotations in the dialogue, but I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Mhm.
And within this episode, we see them both going through their own hardships, going on their own missions of sorts. And I think we'll be talking a lot about less so about, at least in regards to my notes. I think it's a given that this is high quality, you know, premium television. So like, I don't really have any comments on, effects or the quality
Yeah,
of the storytelling. I
same.
just have comments on the plot and the connotations for the rest of the season.
Yeah, mine are exactly the same. Yeah, and I suppose noticeably for people who are still continuing on with the Disney Plus train, when it compares to WandaVision, obviously episodes are good, 15 to 20 minutes longer, at least this one was anyway, which is nice to see. But strangely, I think overall with this show, there might be a little bit less to talk about just because the nature of the show, there's going to be less theories and it's not going to be as I'm not sure if the hype behind it is the same. But that being said,
Hmm.
this was still my most hyped Disney Plus or Marvel release this year. To be honest with you, man, I'm really really excited for this one. How were you feeling the boards? Were you really excited for it, or not too fast?
Yeah, because watching the promotional material, I think it was very clear that it was evoking Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Captain America: Civil War, and that was the period in time where I was really in love with Marvel. Before it kind of the ship sank. With sort of the
Yeah,
high budget messes that were like just I like
I get you.
I don't want to complain about Marvel because they do make good, entertaining, family friendly, crowd pleasing stuff. But this was the era that I was really in love with, the spy espionage,
Mm.
taking itself a bit more seriously, but it's not in the real world. It's still ridiculous. Uh, and I really love to see that with these two comedic characters because, one thing that Captain America isn't is funny. So this is sort of a Captain America story, but with the injection of comedy. So I really appreciated it. And going in, I was really really amped for that.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same, man. That sort of era between Winter Soldier and Civil War was like peak MCU for me back in the day. That was incredible. But yeah, just before we kick in for the review of the Falcon and Winter Soldier premiere, thanks to everyone who supported us recently. And if you like superhero films and TV shows, be sure to listen to our latest podcast in which we reviewed the Snyder Cut. It was one of my favorites to record. I think one of the columns as well, and it was longer than the actual cinematic release of the Snyder Cut, which of the Justice League film, Joss Whedon cut back in the day. So it's one of our longer podcasts, but really good fun. But yeah, man, if you want to open the floor with your notes in the episode, dude, I'll chip in where I can.
Well, I just sort of wanted to talk about, uh, expectations because I think when it came to WandaVision, people did have their expectations set very high, but I do think that was because of, uh, you know, lies and trolling
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
things like that. And, when people say, you know, people set their expectations too high, I think that's unfair because there were things that were teased and then abandoned, red herrings throughout, and then characters that are intrinsically tied to other characters within the show that they just ignore. But here, I had high anticipation but low expectations. I expected it to be good, but I didn't really have any ideas of what it's going to be or what's going to happen. So I think this was a nicer start because I sort of went in fresh, being like, I'm just going to sit down, watch it, enjoy it, or
100%.
not enjoy it. I guess if it was awful, but thankfully it's not. But here, I really didn't have anything to expect. I was just expecting a simple tale, and now that we know that these shows aren't really going to have any lasting effects or connotations for the films, it's kind of just a small story to enjoy, and I appreciate it being 6 episodes because
Definitely.
then you're only watching this play out for not too long. Although I mean Kevin Feige has said that there isn't going to be huge connotations for the rest of the MCU, and you're not going to be lost whenever you watch the movies. But I feel like with the introduction of characters like Miss Marvel, I feel like it's pretty integral to watch that before you see Captain Marvel
Oh,
too.
for sure. Oh yeah, even shows like I think She-Hulk is a TV show.
Hmm.
Even shows like when they're introducing characters like Miss Marvel as well. Like you'd think that'd be pretty fundamental. And obviously here, there is a pretty big sort of change in the MCU, and that is, I think sort of the introduction of the new Captain America here in the form of the US agent. I kind of feel like that plot line is big enough to be in a movie. To be honest with you, mate, I think that is pretty major.
Hmm.
And we'll definitely discuss that. One thing I kind of wanted to mention to you as well, mate. Obviously, you kind of mentioned the comparison about the expectations and the anticipation behind this in WandaVision. I actually think this show is going to be less impacted by that, just because I think through the promotion, even and through the marketing, what you see is what you get with this. Obviously, for people who don't want to hear this, I suppose this is a little bit of a spoiler for later on in the show. But obviously, with the marketing, Zemo is an apparent figure returning here. Obviously, this episode's got Batroc, War Machine. It's what you see is what you get. Like I think maybe the surprises in the show will be through the likes of War Machine and those kind of Avenger level cameos. I'm thinking there could be a potential, I don't know, a Scott Lang cameo. I know him and Falcon always have a good bit of back and forward in the movies. So I don't know. I kind of feel like with this show, the fact that it's 6 episodes. That being said, the episodes are longer. It just gives it time to flesh it out, but also it's in a narrow time frame where I think there's going to be less room for theories and ultimately disappointment, like kind of how I felt with WandaVision. But that being said, the episodes fly by like that, mate. They really do. It feels 20 minutes.
I know. Like, yeah,
Crazy.
it started and it was over so quickly. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as US Agent showed up, I was like,
Fuck, it's over.
it does feel
Yeah.
like they're revving up to a finish, but it's been 20 minutes surely.
Yeah.
And then the
40
credits rolled,
minutes.
and I was like,
Yeah, dude. I know, man. Yeah.
and something that surprised me was actually that we haven't seen an MCU film since 2019. And the first project that we had seen since Spider-Man Far From Home was WandaVision, and I think people were very eager for that to come out. But here, it was a short break of about 1 week. Was 1 week, but I really appreciated it. I don't know, it sort of felt like this palate cleanser, because these are two so distinct genres. So I mean, I actually appreciated the break, if I'm honest.
Yeah, man. I think a palate cleanser is a perfect description of that. I don't know if you watched the behind the scenes of WandaVision. I started watching it
I
a little
did.
bit. It was very, very interesting. But I think that week in
Blue
between.
Vision with the ears.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I think for me that week was a real great opportunity just to take a step back, and because obviously Kevin Feige had promised weekly MCU content, be that in the form of behind the scenes or whatever. But I think when you have that, there is the risk of burnout for especially for
Hmm.
fans. Fans, it's a big commitment, every week for the rest of the year or however long it is. But I think here the week break was nice. Obviously, not everyone would have watched the assembled documentary on the show WandaVision, and I think obviously with this show, as you said, two very different genres. This harkens back to the days of the espionage in 2014 and 2016 with the movies. So, yeah, I mean, and obviously it brings back, integral characters of those films. We see George St. Pierre back as Batroc, which is great because he was always, I thought he was a really bright spot of Winter Soldier, to be honest. Is obviously with him being a former UFC champion, he can handle the action scenes perfectly, you know.
Yeah, and that was probably the most Russo flourish of the episode, because the opening sequence with the Falcon, to me, really did feel like it harkened back to the boat infiltration scene from Winter
Yeah,
Soldier,
didn't it, mate?
and that was just incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I actually one thing, it's kind of a subtle thing that they did here in this episode, but they actually they got back Henry Jackman who did the musical score for the Winter Soldier. And
Mhm.
obviously the Winter Soldier score is fantastic. And I think it's a really smart move to bring that back, because it does remind me of the old days of that sort of peak MCU for me. So that was fantastic, dude. Fantastic.
Yeah, because I've never personally loved, how the Russo brothers film action. It's very quick. I know you kind of appreciate like quick cuts, but it's kind of like
It's
it
definitely not
kind
for
of
everyone.
gives me a bit of whiplash.
Yeah, I get
It's
that.
a bit too quick. But here, they've really chilled out on that, and there's a lot of kicking.
Yeah, there is
I,
a lot
I
of kick,
really
yeah.
enjoyed that for some reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially like Falcon using his sort of combo moves.
Yeah,
I don't know. I was
yeah.
really impressed.
I get that. Yeah, for sure, dude, for sure. And what one comparison I kind of wanted to mention to you, buddy, obviously a couple years ago, Daredevil season 3 had aired, and I feel like, we'll obviously discuss the US agents in a bit. I feel like with the introduction of that character taking over the Captain America mantle, it really did remind me of how Bullseye became Daredevil almost in that
Mm.
show, and how they're trying to, in this show, they're trying to, you know, how would you say, not forget Captain America, but certainly like push him to the background and introduce this new breed of hero. And it kind of really felt to me like Daredevil, in which he was kind of framed, and obviously Bullseye took the mantle for a bit. I thought it was a really, so obviously US Agent's got like a new swanky costume, and weirdly I was watching a new Rockstar's video. He's carrying like a gun as well, which I think is quite strange. Potentially, there could be a few theories as to whether he's working for some kind of evil group in this show.
Well, I mean, Captain America had a gun during the
That's
war.
true. He did. Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, it may just be that in these unprecedented 2023 times, or
Yeah.
no, it'd be 2024 in the timeline now. 'Cause it's been 6 months since Endgame, but
I
I,
suppose so. Yeah. Cap
yeah,
did
I
use
feel
it.
like
He
they're
willed a gun,
probably
didn't he?
just living. It may also indicate that he's not as powered as Captain America, I
Yeah,
suppose.
that's true. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
And to speak of Captain America, of course, Steve Rogers, it's implicitly suggested that he has since died, since Avengers Endgame. And I genuinely think that there's some things that Marvel does, and they think, yeah, we've addressed it, let's move on.
Fuck.
And then you're like, what are they even saying here? Like, there was a lot of that in WandaVision, where it was like this, red herring, or this plot establishment, and you're like, oh, where's that going to go? And they're like,
Nowhere.
oh, we finished it, and you're like,
What?
what? What?
Yeah,
I feel like that
that's
might
here.
be the same case here. Because in the opening of Spider-Man Far From Home, they have an in memoriam, for the Avengers, and they show that Captain America is a part of that. It's unclear whether that's because the government has confirmed he's dead and he's not, or is he actually dead, or do they think that he died during the battle with Thanos? Like, it's very unclear, but
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that he's dead.
It's a really interesting one because obviously recently Kevin Feige had said, yeah, Chris Evans is not coming back to the MCU, and I thought the timing of that announcement was quite strange. So that came on the day, if not a couple of days before the show premiered. So I think it's one of two. It's gonna be one of two things, man. Either one, he will die during the course of the show, and then the funeral will happen in an episode, or he is already dead, and they've just bullshitted their way out of it by not doing anything. Like, I think if they're gonna do what they probably did here and kill him off screen, you got to at least open the show with a funeral or something like that. I think that's a proper way of addressing it, rather than just sort of, did he or didn't he pass away, with sort of the dialogue that the characters have back and forth in this episode. I also think if they're going to bring back Chris Evans, it's going to be a situation where it might happen in the penultimate episode, like one of the characters needs advice or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to see him back just for a little cameo. But that being said, I thought his ending was really perfect, a perfect ending in Endgame. So I'm not too sure. I know that's a bit of a hot take on this channel, but what's your thoughts? Like, what do you think they're
Well, I
going
mean,
to do?
it's not a hot take on this channel if it's like 50% of the consensus. So I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think you can say that, but I think that he's done with the MCU for the near future. I don't think he's going to appear in the show. I think they've pretty much said that to the public he is dead. I think the government probably said he died during the battle with Thanos, when in reality he went back in time and returned to the present. So I think he's I don't think he's going to appear in the show, but it's very rare for the MCU to close a door that tight and say, yeah, they're dead, they're gone for good. So I don't think they'll ever say the words Steve is dead until they're 100% sure that they don't want to ever revisit him.
Yeah, I think that's a really keep the door open, kind of, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a
You
good point.
know, we've talked a little bit about Sam, but to go over to Bucky, we don't get to see too much of Bucky in this episode. I think it's a Sam heavy episode,
It
especially
is, yeah.
in regards to action. But Bucky's opening action sequence, very short but incredible. And
Yeah.
you know, I really miss his Winter Soldier look, but it was great to see it again.
It absolutely was. And one thing about Bucky is I'm not really used to seeing him just in a civilian environment. You know, I'm just obviously like he kind of mentions in this episode. I kind of feel like he was the screenwriter was kind of poking fun at the plot of the MCU, where like there was a point where every movie Bucky was in, there was just no character development. They were just like, yeah, put him off into this battle, you know, battle in Wakanda in Endgame, you know, those kind of things. So there's no time for him just to rest. I mean, there was a little bit in Wakanda, but that was just an end credit scene, really. So I kind of think for me, him just doing normal people stuff. He's on a date with this lovely lady. It's really nice to see. And Sebastian Stan just carries so much charm, and stuff in his performance. And I just think it's a really, I think that the two characters here, I think there is going to be a few emotional moments as well. Like I don't think it's not as the first episode was really sort of void of humor, I thought, and maybe that's because they're not together. But I think that it wasn't a very this episode took itself very seriously, and I kind of respected that because I think everyone does get a little bit bored of the MCU humor now and again, even if it is success. It makes money, it absolutely does. But I think that just the way both characters are just allowed to do normal people stuff, and they still have regular hero problems with money and things like that. So it kind of reminded me of the old Peter Parker days, where yes, he is a superpowered being, but he does have regular human stuff troubles like dating and money. You know what I mean? It was great.
Mm. Yeah, and you know, we see the Buckies, you know, going to a therapist, government mandated, it seems, you know, to treat his
Mm-hmm.
PTSD. And the therapist just gives him so much shit for not
Yeah,
calling people. I'm like, do you live in the 21st century? Clearly Bucky is,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. He's
who
the one
calls
that.
people?
Yeah, I know. It's quite rare, isn't it, these days? Like, I would never call. I've never. We only just text. Like, we never call. I never really call anyone. To be honest. What about
No,
you? No, neither.
no, I can't remember the last time I called a person that wasn't my dad being like, can I have a lift?
Yeah, yeah. No, same. But yeah, I think in this show as well.
Well, I did call my brother the other day, but that was because he wanted my Now TV password to watch the Snyder Cut.
Oh
So
yes, yes.
I mean, it's
Fair.
so which means
Yeah, one thing about the show, man, obviously, it kind of introduces this new kind of not terrorist organization, but I suppose like anti-establishment kind of organization, the Flag Smashers. And I think the character of Flag Smasher is a character from the comics, but it's interesting to see whether I think Sam's buddy in the military, Torres, like, do you think he's going to be a potential villain? Because I don't know, something doesn't sit right about his character for me. I don't know, something's a bit off there.
well, I mean, I did look up his character, and he is a comic book character who has gone under the Falcon mantle. You know, but yeah, he seems. I mean, instantly I fell in love with this character. He's a lovely
He
man, it
is great.
seems.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But yeah, sometimes you have to call into question in these kinds of projects. You know, is sometimes too nice equals secret bad guy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, mate. And obviously, in the subject of Secret Bad Guy, the US agent is like, I suppose he's one of those characters in the comics. He's a bit of an anti-hero. Like, there's a lot of issues where he's a bit of an antagonist to Cap and Falcon. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And do you think there is a bigger picture behind the scenes as to whether he's working with the Flag Smashers or Zemo, or do you think it is just like he is actually a good guy doing it for the right reasons? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think him being an antagonist is where they're going with it. You know, I think that is the comic book route, isn't it? You know, he's
Yeah.
sort of a darker character. Yeah, so I think villain is, or at least antagonist, is definitely on the cards. And I think there is going to be a bigger conspiracy there. Working with the Flag Smashers, I think is probably a fair shout. You know, but I feel like he'll be entirely removed from Zemo. I don't really know how they're going to balance the two of them. You know, if they sort of
Yeah.
split the season into two and it was like two movies, like the US Agent movie and the Zemo movie, that
Mhm.
that, that would kind of make sense. But I know that's not how a TV show operates, so it's probably going to be, you know, straddling the two at the same time. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. I just hope it doesn't get too bloated.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I think it could end up, Zemo and the Flag Smashers are one and the same, or because obviously I think we find out in this episode there's like a somewhat of a super powered leader of the Flag Smashers who I don't know whether he's like super soldier serum or something like something's going on there. But yeah, I kind of feel like I just worry for the show if they're trying to balance too much at once with the Flag Smashers, the US agent, and obviously Zemo. But I don't know. I think obviously there is going to be a few returning characters here. Sharon Carter later on, and we'll see. I don't know if War Machine will have stuff to do here. Probably not. Although obviously Batroc as well is a threat. So I think there is a lot going on here. But that being said, I think I do have confidence with this. How good this episode was, I think they probably could balance it very well.
I mean, I hope so. But if you spend, if this were a movie, or two movies tacked together, if you spent the first third of a movie, like just not really planting many seeds, I'm not sure how that's necessarily
Yeah.
going to play out. Like, do you think they wasted the first episode and not making a huge impact?
I don't know, man. I kind of feel like the pacing was actually quite good. They introduced the Flag Smashers, introduced US Agent. I'm glad that, although to be fair, they did wait until like the last scene in the episode to do that with both. But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that Zemo wasn't in this episode is a little bit of a concern because he's such an integral character to these two. I kind of feel like he has to at least have like a major impact here. If if put it this way, like if he's not in the second episode, I would be quite concerned. I think he will be.
Yeah.
I do think he will be though. And what are your thoughts,
Yeah,
man?
I feel like he should be the presence to bring them together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good shot. Obviously, we see that I was watching a New York Stars vid and they sort of had analysed the names on Bucky's list and Zemo was one of them. So I think that's probably gonna how they're gonna come across maybe in the next episode. But yeah, mate. Go ahead.
In this episode, I just felt so terrible for Bucky because there's a moment where he's hanging out with his new pal, Yuri, I think, and he's left him to go on the date, and he's speaking to this girl, and then she says, "Oh yeah, it's just so tragic that he doesn't know how his child died,"
Yeah.
and then it cuts to Bucky, and I was like, "Oh shit, he killed his son, didn't
killed
he?"
his son, yeah. I
and
know,
then
it's
and then I
devastating.
remembered that he had shot that guy begging to live in the opening action sequence, and I was just like, oh damn.
Yeah,
But I just feel so terrible for him, and they've never done this so effectively. Because I mean, honestly, in Civil War, I think that was meant to be a moment like this, where they were like, oh, he killed Iron Man's parents. So I was like, yeah, we know. Also, he was brainwashed. So I mean, and then they were just like, fuck you, Iron Man. Like, you're beating up this guy who's been like tortured for like 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very much not Team Iron Man in that film. A lot of people are like, but if you find out that this person that killed your mom was right in front of you, you'd beat them up too. I'm like, well, he didn't kill his mom. He was a conduit for Hydra. He was a blank slate. He was the victim. And it's just so sad that he has to live with the consequences of actions that he didn't choose.
Definitely, dude. I think that's a really great analysis there. And obviously, yeah, I have to agree. I think it was so subtle, that narrative created, where obviously you're kind of wondering, surely one of these people who Bucky kills as the Winter Soldier in this scene has to come back in this episode. Like it makes sense. Obviously, here we see Yuri's son, was one of the main ones who had been killed there, and it's heartbreaking, mate, because you just want to give Bucky a break. You want him to go on a nice date with this lady and have a great time, and yeah, I just feel bad for him, dude, to be honest with you. Same with Sam. Like obviously Sam, I suppose in the show feels like he has a lot of pressure to live up to the mantle, but Bucky especially, mate, you've got to feel for him like in this one, don't you?
Yeah, because if his friend now knew the truth, he would turn on him, and it's just so sad because you see this sweet friendship develop.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
So to move on to US Agent, because that's sort of where my notes end. I kind of wanted to ask you, do you think that Falcon should have taken up the mantle?
It's interesting because obviously it's kind of the government just dick them over because they're like, yeah, it's the right thing to do, put it in the museum, and then like the day after they're just like, yeah, new Captain America. So yeah, I think in that instance I'd obviously be gutted, given that like Steve Rogers himself had said this is for you. Like if Steve Rogers himself chooses you, I kind of feel like I don't think Steve would be insulted because he wouldn't be, he's not that type of character. Like I don't think he'd be insulted, but I think he wouldn't make a mistake in choosing Sam. Like obviously Sam is the one who's meant to have it if Steve Rogers thinks so. So I kind of feel like that expertise is definitely right. So yeah, I kind of feel like he will pick it up. I feel like he should have. But that being said, like I don't like hate him for not doing. Obviously, it's a big burden, and clearly, I guess given the need that it's been 6 months, and I think one of the characters says, you've been relatively in peace. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's not been much criminal activity going on of supernatural element. Kind of seems like maybe it's not really needed at the minute. There's not really been much speak of the Avengers, so I kind of feel like Yeah, I think he will pick it up in the future, but I'm not too sure if it'll be like at the very last episode or something. What about you, mate?
Yeah, he's a powerless character, but I think really the only important criteria to be Captain America is that you're a good man.
Yeah,
That's why
mindset. Yeah.
that's why Dr. Erskine, chose Steve, because he was, the best man they could find. And to me, it just seems like it's absolutely not the government's decision. Like, it seems that shield is in every manner Falcon's possession, that he's just turned over, to the government to display, as you said. So I don't even know why they need a hero that only protects America. Like, when you have so many within America that have prevented every crisis in America up to this point. I
Yeah,
don't know why you need a flagship or a symbol of America. It's like,
it's a bit silly, isn't it?
it seems a bit redundant. Yeah, a bit silly. But I hope that Falcon will take up the mantle. I can't imagine I can't imagine he'll be Captain America in this show. The last scene of the last episode, maybe him, putting on the suit or something. But I think they'll save a lot of that development for a movie, so
I
that
agree. Yeah.
mainstream audiences will actually get to see that.
Yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate the character development given there, because obviously his introduction to Winter Soldier was fantastic, and you really do feel the bond in such a short space of time there between him and Steve. So I kind of feel like, yeah, what you said there, spot on. It's not about like your abilities; it's just about the mindset, like your moral compass, so to speak. So yeah, I kind of feel like Sam definitely deserves it, and I think he will pick it up in the future, mate, for sure.
Do you have anything further on the episode?
No, mate, I don't. I'd love to hear your rating, mate, if you've got nothing else to say.
So I can't really discern why I wouldn't give this episode a 10. I can't pick fault at it, but to me, just a 9 feels right. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, for me, I really love this episode, man. It really did bring back the memories of the Winter Soldier and those kind of films, and obviously Batroc. I love seeing GSP, and obviously, I think it just fleshes out the Bucky and Sam characters really nicely. A perfect opening for me. I think the pacing was excellent. Keeps me on the edge of my seat. 10 out of 10, man. A really strong start. But yeah, thanks very much for today, man. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to check out our other Falcon and Winter Soldier reviews, we'll be doing them weekly as well. So we'll probably create a Falcon and Winter Soldier playlist to go along with our WandaVision playlist. And yeah, for every Disney Plus show that we'll be reviewing weekly, it'll be the same. So Loki and those kind of things. So yeah, stay tuned, guys, next week for the second episode review. And yeah, hope you guys are all well, be family and friends, all safe and well too. Take care and bye bye.
Bye bye.